Hello, Tim. How's it going, man?
Hello, good
It's
to see
awesome.
you again. Yeah, very good.
I'm really good.
How are you?
I'm really good. Thank you. We have an
Watching.
amazing
Yes.
day today. We have an amazing talk, and this is when we actually make the connection between everything we've been talking about in leadership. Most people, when they think of leadership,
Yes.
they don't think about breathing. They don't think about the physiology. They don't think about what sort of leaders there are in this world. Let's face it, we've been bombarded by leaders who use us, abuse us, misuse us. Yeah? So
Mhm.
let's start exploring leadership.
Yeah, it's a very interesting subject, and it's a lot bigger than just leadership. Like when I think of a leader, there's like the image that I get is the alpha guy in the suit. So maybe we could explore first, like, what is a leadership, and is there a certain image that people have, and what we feel is a true leader. Maybe that's
So we should
interesting.
go and do a little bit of time travel then, shall we?
Let's do that. Like 20th century, 21st century, the world is changing. So my question to you is, like, what would be like a 20th century leader, like old school basically.
Okay, that's an interesting question because there's a variety of them in the 20th century. The 20th century leader would mostly be what I would call level one, two, and three leaders, which are in it to win it, you know, in it for themselves. And you explained this to me the other
Uh-huh.
day quite eloquently, um, which is basically they are people who, if they don't know the answers, they can bluff their way through it. Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Yeah. But you're talking about level one to four. Maybe you can explore it a little bit, because that is from
Maxwell,
John
yes, level
Maxwell.
one through five. So there's
Yeah.
there's different levels of leadership. The first level of leadership is basically you've been invited to the table of leaders. You've not been invited to
All
partake in
right.
the meal. You've been invited to partake in the crumbs, in the leftovers, you know? And what does this basically mean?
All right.
This basically can put you in the position of, let's say, the owner of a company. The owner of a company who does not
Mm.
have that leadership quality that where people want to follow them. So people are
Mhm.
following a level one leader because they have to, not because they want to. So it's that owner of the company, the son or the
Mhm.
daughter of the owner of a company who feel entitled, and
Mhm.
which is why they are followed because they have to. If not, they're afraid to get fired. Um, when I've done
Mhm.
work for the military, let's face it, a military leader is followed because they absolutely have to be followed. If not, they're going to get court-martialed. Yeah,
Yes, exactly.
it's that's the level one. The level two is more of a relationship-based leadership, where the people start to get comfortable. So in the first type, people sort of
Uh-huh.
cruise. They do their bare minimum just to get by. And like I was explaining to you the other time, it's basically when you look outside your office and you see that the employees are taking their sweet time to park in the perfect way so they can make their quickest escape possible as soon as work is over, and then they come in and
Yeah.
they take their time to have their coffee, to enjoy it. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, Spain is full of that. We love Spain because of the lifestyle, and you can notice it in their work ethic. And so when the time comes to actually work, they'll do the bare minimum, and they basically start
Yeah.
progressing at work just because of seniority or whatever. Once that's done,
Yeah.
yeah,
They
they
play
play it
safe.
safe.
They
They're
play
they're
safe,
they're just
right?
they're
Yeah.
just cruising, man. They're just coasting. It's like, okay, this is my job. You're paying me to do what I have to do. I'll just do it because I have to. And when the time comes,
It sounds
yes, it sounds like a
attractive.
great life, yay. And uh, and then at the
Yeah.
end of the day, what do? They run down. Right, let's say the day finishes at 5. They run down at 5 minutes before 5. So they're 5 o'clock, they're in their car and they're racing out of the car park. And meanwhile, they take half an hour to get ready. Oh no, half an hour before work finishes. That's it. You know, they've gone home in their minds. They're already putting on their PJs, ordering the pizza, grabbing the remote. That's it. So if your organization works that way, chances are you're a level 1 leader. You don't want to be there. Level 2 leadership.
Level 2.
Yeah. Level 2 is when you start building relationships. So now they're comfortable. Now people are comfortable with you. So they're comfortable, but they will not exceed their comfort zone. They won't pass it. And why won't they pass it? Because, you know, and I like this guy, I like this girl, you know, they're awesome. You know, I like to hang with them. It's great. You know, I have a good time. They don't put too much pressure on me. And that type of leader, and I must admit, I've done this a lot in the past. That type of leader is the type of person who's more concerned about everybody being happy. And I'll tell you one thing.
So like,
if you're a leader,
go ahead.
It's not your job to make everybody happy. You know?
Yeah.
It didn't happen with you and me, because we immediately, from the moment we met, we created a bond. But usually, before I have a conversation with someone for a Facebook Live or for a radio show or for a podcast, the first thing I ask is, what are your expectations? Followed by, remember, whatever we're going to do here is not about you and it's not about me. It's about the value we can add. Yeah.
And about the people that are watching, and not to make them happy. Because I'm looking from a teacher perspective, you know, like Facebook. Spirituality is, you are awesome. You know, you tell people what they want to hear. Well, you're a coach. You don't tell people what they want to hear. You tell people what they need to know.
This is important,
right? Without being too much of an asshole, of course. But you know, yeah. So go ahead.
So and you're totally right. It's very interesting because I remember when I wrote my first book, I was sitting down with 2 of my uncles, and it was really funny because one of my uncles said to me, I don't agree with one of your principles. I said, okay, that's okay. He's like, no, but I don't agree with one of your principles. Yeah, that's fine. You know,
that's okay.
I wrote the book to help people, not for them to agree with it. So if somebody doesn't agree with what I have to say, that's okay. You know, I'm pretty sure that when Sir Isaac Newton thought of the law of gravity, he wasn't really coming up with it for people to agree with it. You know, it was a principle that simply at the time worked very well. And I'm pretty sure that when you're stepping off an airplane ready to skydive, within the first couple of seconds, you'd go like, yeah, I pretty much agree with the law of gravity.
And never fuck with the law of gravity.
No.
Because
yes,
it might hurt.
And remember,
I tell my kids all the time, but you know, like they don't listen. So
yeah, that's okay. Because chances are they're going to learn one way or another. Just remember, if at first they don't succeed, skydiving's not for them.
That's like
it is, man.
Joke,
it
right?
is.
So we're at level 3.
Yeah. So
right?
in level 3, you produce. So this basically means that you are doing things. You might not have all the money, you might not have all the riches, you might not have all the power, but you're doing things and it's getting noticed. Yeah. And people will follow you because now you've got something of value to give them. Yeah. There's a certain level of respect. It is a selfish respect. It is. But it is, for example, in multi-level marketing, this is where most leaders get stuck. They get stuck at a level 3 leadership because the principle of multi-level marketing is duplication. Yeah. And it's good. That's the same principle as franchising. It's duplicating your efforts, duplicating yourself, duplicating the business. And this is fine. This is perfectly fine. It's a good level to be at, but it's not a level that's going to change lives. It's going to be a level that changes lives probably at a monetary level, because you're able to multiply yourself and your efforts so you can get residual income, or you can get residual results from your efforts. And this will happen with writers and with bloggers and with podcasters and so on, who receive payment for whatever they are doing residually, right? And then basically what happens at this level is that you earn a level of respect because of what you've done, and not only because of what you've done, but also because what you have done can be reproduced, and it adds value to the way of working for others. Now, a level 4 leader has vision. All leaders should have a vision,
Okay.
right? One of the most important things about a leader is.
Well, excuse me, I agree, but I think a lot of leaders don't have.
They're not leaders.
I mean, how? Yeah. So in our terminology, in our dictionary, how many percentage of managers, leaders, like whatever, maybe parents even, kind of leader, actually have a vision, do you think? Is it like 10%, 5, 20?
I dare
50?
to say that even less than 10% would have a clear vision. See, vision has to be clear.
I think
it can't just be, there. Oh, yeah, I have a vision of having a happy family. Yeah, that's not really a vision. A vision is not a goal. I have a vision for my company to be the best in their industry that we can possibly be. I'm sorry, that's pathetic.
It's a goal.
That's a goal, and it's a wishy-washy one.
Big difference. Big difference. Thank you. I'm learning something here. That's really cool.
Well, that's what we're here for, right? To learn from each other.
Yeah.
But it's exactly that kind of vision of we're going to be the best in our industry that we can be. We're going to be the most important in the industry that we can be. We're going to be the reference of whatever that we can be. It's wishy-washy because it doesn't actually add value to anyone beyond the company. It doesn't add value or inspire the employees or the people within the organization.
Yeah.
Being the best at whatever product or service you have. I mean, I'm looking around here, and in my flat, as I'm sure in every house that you have, there are pipes, tubings for the drains and all these things. So let's face it, there are companies who build these things, who make them, who manufacture them, right? And if their vision is to build the best piping system that we can build and be a reference worldwide in piping, is not an inspiring vision for the people who work for you.
No. Yeah. It's funny that I just, sorry, I have to think of Microsoft versus Apple, where I don't even know what Microsoft's vision is, but it would probably be like, I don't even know, but probably be something like selling the most computers or something. Well, Apple's vision was challenging the status quo. And that is something that, like, I could work for a company with a vision like that. I think Apple is a crappy company at this moment, so don't get me wrong. It was, like a very cool company, and it basically went from a very new and 21st century company to a 20th century company, where first the focus was on something bigger than money, challenging the status quo, maybe even making the world a better place, while now it's more about making money. But sorry, I'm interrupting you. So the difference between a level 3 and a level 4 leader is vision. That was.
It's not just
you were
vision,
saying, right?
All leaders should be able to see more and see more before than the rest of the people that they're leading. Because let's face it, if you find yourself in a room and somebody else is seeing more than you're seeing, or other people are seeing before you're seeing, then you're no longer the leader in that room, are you? So, oh, okay. So we've got an interesting one. Okay.
Hmm.
So here's a question. I would love to hear your visions.
Oh, who
Do you
goes
want to take
first?
it?
Sure. So my vision is to make people more body aware. And that's my goal,
Circle.
actually. This is my vision. Good question.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, here I go. You know, getting all nervous here. So my vision is that through more body intelligence, we get to have a better life for ourselves, but also creating a better world where we care more about each other.
That's a vision.
Is that a vision?
But don't question
I
yourself
never really
about it.
thought
You
about
need
it
to
like this.
develop your vision a little bit further. I think you and I are going to work on that one. You know? But
Yeah,
let's do
cool.
that
Let's do
privately.
that. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So
What's
Michael
yours?
is the one who asked the question. My vision has changed. My dear friends, it has changed. Before, my
Hmm.
vision was quite simple, really, to have the privilege to touch the hearts and change the lives of all the people I have the honor to meet and the desire to help. But lately, and you know exactly when this happened. This happened a day before one of our conversations. I had a vision, and my vision became larger than me. I shifted from wanting to achieve things to wanting to grow and to wanting to grow things. So
Definitely. I definitely have to
it's
say, yeah.
impressive because it's a shift where all of a sudden criticism takes on a new form. All of a sudden, when somebody
Mm.
criticizes or gives me feedback, I'm like, wow, thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, let me explore that because that gives me growth. I've messed up here, I've messed up there, or I can improve here and I can improve there. But see, since this whole Forbes thing happened, I started realizing that there's a larger reach to the capabilities of a coach now that we have more exposure. And I realized
Mm.
that my vision is, in fact, to change things. My vision is to create consciousness at a massive level where people can question authority and can question leadership through the power of the three questions that you and I discussed the other day.
Yes. Can you repeat them? Because we kind of ended there last time, and this is, I think it's an amazing like definition for a leader. Or yeah, well, go ahead. Yeah,
So my
this is very
vision,
interesting. And we were still at level 4,
we'll
and
go
we're going
back.
to
Yeah,
level 5 in a
we
bit.
jumped.
Okay.
That's okay.
Yeah.
You know, and that way, if you guys are interested in what level 5 leadership is, just watch till a little bit later, and you'll get it. So,
Cliffhanger.
where? Sorry about that. Okay, so this is it. So my vision is that we're able to, through the use of questions and language, teach ourselves how to question ourselves deeply, profoundly, asking ourselves three very basic questions. Number one, do I care about myself? Because if I don't care about myself, who am I going to care about and who's going to care about me? Number two, do I trust myself? Because if I don't trust myself, who can trust me and who can I trust? And number three, can I help myself? If I can't help myself, nobody's going to help me, and I'm not going to help anybody. It's as simple as that. So when we're able to answer those questions using different parts of our persona, let's say our actions, our character, our attitude, and our morality, and these are all
Mm.
individual things, and if we can answer yes clearly to every single one of those questions with every single one of those four things, then we're onto something big. And then we've got a base to
But
question our leaders.
Yes, but those are pretty intense questions because, and we're always more critical to ourselves than to others. Yeah, because these three questions, if you ask it about another person, you know, like how can you define a leader? Do I trust you? Do you care about me? Can you help me? And the answer, if it's about somebody else, is yes, yes, yes. It's quite easy. It's quite like black and white, 100% yes. It's for some people, I truly have all three of them. But when you talk about yourself, like, do I trust myself? Well, yes, but is it like 100% or is it sometimes 99, sometimes 80? And in some states I'm in, it's more like 20%. Like when I want to get home from a drink with my stock market colleagues, for example, like I do trust myself even then. But those are pretty intense questions that are not necessarily 0 and 1, yes or no, but maybe like a gray area. Like I'm an economist and I love mathematics, and I think there's a lot of really cool, call it spiritual stuff into mathematics. And one thing is thinking in probabilities. Yeah, so is something true or not? 80% true, 77%, 21%, 0.1% true. It's never a 0 or a 1. We're only living in the big gray area between the 0 and the 1, between the yes and the no. And I think if you start thinking in probabilities, you get to be very honest to yourself. Because, of course, like my ego would want to say, do I trust myself? Yes. But is that really always true?
Yeah. It jumps from situation to situation, doesn't it?
So I rather think in probabilities. And an example, if say I meet somebody on the street, say bag lady, yeah, that is screaming in the supermarket and smells from alcohol and sweat, basically. And she starts to talk against me. And she's like, blah, 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 and talking about something that I'm like, what? And then before I just say like, listen, just get lost, I don't want to talk to you, I think like, is there the slightest chance that what this woman is talking about may actually be true? Like whatever. How bad these that you get like cancer from wearing
Yeah.
stuff like this, and then I would think like, well, there is a 5 to 10% chance to that. Let's say this is completely true for the moment. I listen to the woman, yeah, with full empathic, listening, like really interested and curious to what she has to say, because I just get into that 10%, and for a moment I say it's 100% true. And then afterwards, when I walk away, I just feel, is this my truth, yes or no? If it's a no, I dump it. If it's a yes, I take it for now. So, well, it's a bit of a sidestep, so I'm not sure if I'm really, if this is really strong in this talk here, but thinking in probabilities is something that makes you very honest towards yourself,
I think
I
it
would say.
does. I think it does. I think if you were able to quantify things,
Mm-hmm.
I think it does help a lot. I mean, I do a lot of quantification of pretty much everything. I quantify everything from 0 to 10 if I need to make a decision, right? So, for
Oh, cool. Yeah.
example, I know that.
So that's also in probabilities. It's not 0 or 10. It can be a 2, 3, 5, 7,
Exactly.
8, 9.
And I know
Right?
that
It's
there's
not a,
always room for
yeah.
improvement in whatever area of my life I'm qualifying and quantifying. But for example, I know that when we're talking about trusting yourself, I know there's a lot of things that you can do to improve that trust that you have in yourself. There's a lot of techniques and a lot of
Yes,
strategies, and
definitely.
there's a lot of ways that you can be honest, and honesty comes through feedback, you know. Um, and when I used to live out in the ranch in Texas, they told me, so if a man calls you a horse, you punch him in the face. If a second man calls you a horse, you kick him in the nuts. but if a third man calls your horse, you better go down to the shop and buy yourself a saddle. Yeah. So through feedback, it requires a tremendous amount of psychological dissonance to not listen to a whole bunch of consistent feedback. You know?
Yeah. If you have a fight with everybody, maybe the problem is with you and not with everybody.
Yeah. Well, this happens so much.
Yeah.
This happens so much. It's.
I have it all the time.
Yeah, I have. I rarely get into arguments lately, but hold on. Oh, this is interesting here. Oh God. All right. I'm gonna send this one to you, Tim. I'm gonna.
All right. Wait. I can open it on my laptop.
I'm pinning the comment there. Yeah, and this is Alex.
Is that live on my Alex? I once heard a story. That one?
Yep, that's the one.
Sorry, I'm not. I once heard a story about the development of AI in Japan in the 80s, where they predicted flying cars and talking robots in the 90s. They were confident because they were hard coding their AI. How can you hard code an AI? They failed to deliver. Shortly after that, we saw the development of scores in AI, an integer between 0 and 100. Since learning that, I've noticed that most things in the real world are almost never 0 or
something
1, but something in between. Alex, I love you. I totally agree. So there's no question.
No, this is a good comment, a very good comment, and this is true. Things aren't black and white.
Yeah.
Things are quantifiable, but the quantification is usually quite subjective. Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, I've been. Oh,
No,
sorry,
go on.
you go ahead. So I've been working in a company called Source Capital, which is trades on the stock markets, and fully with AIs. You know, only with algorithms basically. And the funny thing is that here I learned how to think in mathematics. And there's one thing, and can you finish at level 4 and level 5? Because I have a feeling, and I know a little bit what you're going to say about that. And then I want to come again with an example of mathematics. Okay. That is the film of John Nash.
So, all right. So a level 4 leader develops other leaders, develops their people. Yeah, a level 4 leader is a leader that is followed because people respect them, truly respect the leader, not just because of what they can give, but because of the vision they deliver. Yeah, and the level 5 leader is a leader who goes beyond him or herself to develop other level 4 leaders. Yeah, it's a person who, through empathy, through understanding, through character, through vision, through attitude, can lead masses, or even if it's just a small group, it can lead a small group into an inspired vision. So this is the key thing, the biggest difference, I would say, between level 4 and level 5 is a creation of empathy through an inspired vision with the absolute desire to develop other leaders.
So that is very interesting, because in my terminology, there's 2 leaders. So level 1 to 4 is in it for themselves, and level 5 leader is starting to take care of the group. That's what you're saying.
I would say level
right?
1 to 3 are in for themselves. Level 4 is already looking at others.
It's like a
it's the same sort of gray area.
So for me, for me, there's like the old school leader is in it for themselves, for their ego, for their status, for the money, and they really in the end don't give a damn about what is actually happening with the people that work for them or the company they work for. Like average banker, you could say. Not all of them, by the way. You know, I don't want to stigmatize anybody here. And then a level 5 leader is exactly as you say. You know, a leader that cares about the group. And when you care about the group, you need some level of empathy, because otherwise, yeah, things won't
They
work
don't.
out. You know, if you're like. So and back to the mathematics. So I'm an economist, right? And so in our economic model is based on Adam Smith. I don't know if you ever heard of the guy, but Adam Smith basically said it's like his research is 200 years old, more than 200 years old. And it says, according to a certain set of assumptions, you know, that everybody has the same chances, that you don't need any money to enter a business and stuff like that. Which are, of course, assumptions that are not met in the real world. But he came to the conclusion that self-interest is the highest good. You have everybody, every agent in a economic environment would just optimize their own agenda, basically. They would, sorry, just get it away. They would, the whole of it, like the whole world, the whole economic system would be most efficient. That's Adam Smith. And then John Nash, and maybe you know John Nash of the film A Beautiful
Yes.
Mind. Okay, so John Nash, he was schizophrenic, and he saw people that were there, and he was totally nuts, but extremely intelligent. And he came to the conclusion that Adam Smith was wrong because, and this is pure mathematics, and this is what I love about mathematics sometimes, you know, that based on mathematics, he came to the conclusion, this is called the prisoner's dilemma.
The prisoner's
by the way,
dilemma.
if you want to look
I'm
it up.
writing it down.
Yeah. That if you think 50-50, here comes the probability thinking again, you think as much about yourself as the group you're acting in, you come to a mathematically optimal decision. Yeah, so that is very interesting, because if you look, some people, they only want to please others, and they're, you know, like some parents have that. If my kids are happy, I'm happy. Sorry, I don't want to swear like on television, but that's bullshit, you know. If you're only in it for others, and if they're happy, you're happy, it just doesn't work like that. If you, however, are on the other side of the spectrum, you only, your agenda is pure your own agenda, and you don't give a damn about other people, you probably will die rather lonely without friends, you know. So what is the secret? The secret is in the balance, the 50-50. Of course you have to think of yourself. You know, you ask money for your coaching sessions because you have a family to feed, you know. It's the same as for me. Yes, of course I'm thinking about myself, and at the same time I'm thinking about the group. And then referring this back to companies, you know, like I am working on a big plan. It's for a later moment, but I've just founded an investment fund, and the big plan is to find companies that are not only in it for the money. Because, you know, when you talk about companies, the private agenda is money. Yeah, so companies that have as a highest goal making money, 20th century companies, my vision is that in the future they will go down and hard, you know, better buy your put options. Well, companies that take care of, say, the 99% of the people instead of the 1%ers, yeah, that solve a problem for the whole world, for all the people, or make the world clean or whatever. Those are companies that use money, but they have a higher goal above money. Now back to leaders. A old school leader is in it for himself. He doesn't give a damn about anybody else. And a new style leader is empathetic and is caring about his team or his company or the world or his clients or whatever. So he takes, apart from the private agenda, which is the paycheck basically, he takes responsibility, because a real leader shows the way and might actually change people's mind and therefore the world in a positive way. And I think afterwards I will post this little video because John Nash in the film A Beautiful Mind, and it's called the bar scene, and I will post it in the comments of our live talk, because it shows beautifully how his mathematics works with a scene in a bar. Like, well, let's not talk about the film that is not here. I'm going to post it later, but this shows this idea that to be in it for yourself or to be in it for the group and yourself at the same time, which is most optimal. It's very interesting, and it is about leadership very much. It's about level 5 leaders are, of course, in it for themselves, because otherwise you lose your
Absolutely.
energy. If you don't help yourself, help yourself first. If somebody is drowning and you just jump in, you both drown. You need something to hold on. You have to help yourself first. And then you can actually start, taking care of the group, which I think is ultimately what we all want. And you get there by feeling, say, relatively good. I don't always feel good about myself, but I feel relatively good. So I'm able to help others.
You see, this is an interesting thing because, okay, let's say you're in a plane, yeah, and the first thing that the air hosts will say to you is, "I'd just like to say hi to Sahel. Hey, my friend, how are you?" Um,
Hello,
so
Sahel.
one of the things is you go into a plane, you get ready for takeoff, and the air hosts, air hostess, air host, whatever, they'll come up and they'll say, they'll give you the safety instructions, and one of the things that they'll say is,
Mm-hmm.
if there's a loss in cabin pressure, the oxygen masks will fall down. Please put the mask on yourself and then on
First.
whoever's with you, right? The important thing here
It's
is that you
exactly the
need to
same.
be able to be safe before you actually save someone else, which is one of the things I said. You cannot, if you answer to yourself the question of, can I help myself? It's an important one. If the answer is yes, then that's fantastic. If the answer is no, then you need to work on it. When it comes to ourselves,
You need to ask help with
you do.
others. Yeah, you need to ask someone. This is where
Yep.
we come in,
Yep.
like, yeah.
Yep.
And it's very good to ask for help. I think, it's something that I have had a big problem. I always felt like I should do it
Oh,
alone, and these days I'm asking for help. It really works.
this is the
It's
coach's
amazing.
dilemma,
Yeah,
right? Because we
it is. Yeah, the teacher disease, I call it. Yeah. Oh, I know best. No, I don't know best. I'm just sharing what I
this is
learned.
it.
And it's funny that I just did a retreat in Finland, and this is a retreat center where, like, they have a retreat every weekend, and they have like gurus from India, like the whole shebang. Everybody has been there, and I came there with my colleague Rob, and basically, like, this is what I always say. Like, first of all, don't trust me. Test for yourself. We set a few benchmarks, and also, I'm not like there and you're here. No, I'm just learning something, and I've been learning for, say, 5 years. This, for example, Wim Hof method, and for you this is the first time. So here maybe I know a little bit, but I don't know everything, like, for sure. And later we got the feedback that the Finns have never been so open, because basically we showed our vulnerability. And they said, and this was like, I was like, really? They said, like, this was the best retreat we ever gave. And I was like, really? Why? Like, I was getting shy from it. And it was basically because we showed our vulnerability. And this opened up the whole group. And Finns can be a bit stuck. It's not like Spanish, they immediately, like, start throwing with things.
We're
I
not
love
very
that, by the
politically
way. And I
correct here,
love the
by the
Finns
way,
too,
for those of you who haven't noticed.
Well,
I
fuck
agree.
political correct. No, but yeah, so it actually works, if you, and I've been on the other side too, like, oh, I'm a teacher now, I should have the answer to everything.
It's
It's
not.
just not true, and I didn't feel good with it, and I just stopped. I stopped teaching for a while too, and then I noticed, like, wait a minute, I'm just sharing what I learned, and this, like, I'm not better or higher than anybody else, and neither is anybody else higher or better than me. So I would never adore a guru because, like either you're a mate or not. You know what I mean? And the guru that puts himself above me makes then the rebel in me comes out because I just don't play
Yeah,
that
we're
game
very much the
anymore,
same
you
there.
know?
Well, Sahel is actually making a comment here. It's
Yeah,
too
cool.
many men especially feel it as sign of weakness to ask for help, but it is essential. Now, I'm going to say something here.
Agree.
Sahel, I would really love it if you could post um, the link to your book, my friend, because I think that people really do need to read it. Here's the deal. The ego gets in the way, man. The ego gets in the way. It's a very interesting thing, but you see, the ego is what connects us to this physicality, right? And when the ego is connecting us to this physicality, it gets away from us. And sometimes pride just gets there and says, you know what? I can't ask for help. Why? Because if I'm the one who's supposed to be strong, I'm the one who's supposed to be teaching. Why am I going to say, I need help? Here's why. Because you're human. Because you're human. Because we're coaches, teachers, professors, consultants are not superheroes. We all have emotions that we need to deal with. We all have shit that we have to go through. We all have to, yes, you're right, Elizabeth. We all have to put our pride in the pocket. And Alex, you're totally right. Ego is the enemy, but it is useful enemy at times. It is a useful enemy. We cannot completely eject it because then we would probably reject a big part of ourselves. But what we need to do is keep it in proper check. We really do need to be able to ask ourselves questions that will hold us accountable for our level of ego, and to make sure that we look towards the collective and not just towards the self, to be able to contribute. We do need to survive. We do need to be able to bring down the mask and help ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the only part of
Can
the
I
ego
add
that's
something
really
to that?
useful. Of course, man. That's what we're here for.
Yeah. And I just said, about this serving the group and serving yourself 50-50. I think that when you talk about ego and about, say, intuition, would that be good? Yeah, because it reminds me of a quote of Einstein who said, like, we have a rational mind and an intuitive mind. The intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. But we've created a society where we honor the servant and have forgotten about the gift. Yes, so if you could say, like, there's intuition, heart thinking, living from the heart, basically, taking care of the group, and ego, mind, self-interest. And intuitive thought, we talked about it this time, and we're going to go here today, of course, again, like, how do you get to intuitive thought is to be not too much in the future and not too much in the past. Yeah, and you do that by slowing down your breathing, for example, And this is why, on the toilet, people get the best ideas because they're for a moment not thinking of anything. They're completely in the moment at that time. So does that mean you want to be 100% intuitive? That wouldn't work. It's not, it wouldn't, because if you are like always in the moment, you're just floating around. You will never be on time for an appointment because you wouldn't even know how to watch the clock, because that is a mind thing, like ego mind thing. And like if without my mind, I wouldn't remember your name, I wouldn't recognize you, I wouldn't know where my bicycle is parked. I would, like there wouldn't be, if I'm only in the moment, only intuitive, nothing would happen. So our mind, our ego is a beautiful thing, and we shouldn't smash it down like all the time. It's just, as Einstein said, it's a faithful servant. So if you have like 50-50, it's actually 49-49, and in between is a bit of space, a bit of silence. And so that intuition and that mind is continuously, you're like swapping between one and the other. And if you're like 90% living in your mind, your life is boring. You don't have dreams. You're not creative. You know, you don't play anymore. Well, if it's only intuitive and only like living from the heart, which it's a great thing, you know, to I only want to live from the heart. Yes, me too. But if you think of it, you know, if you're really always in that moment, you would never ever go somewhere or do anything. So the trick is, and this is the what I call the power of the paradox, it's that you're not like in your mind nor in your intuition, but in both at the same time, or neither, which is a paradox.
It's
I don't
an
know if this
interesting
makes
thing
sense.
because it is a trap. Yes, we do speak about being in the moment, and it is very important. But it is a trap as well to believe that the moment is only the only thing there is. We do
Yeah,
need to honor the past, and listen to those words. It's
learn from
honor
the
the
past, I
past
would
because
say.
if you honor it, you'll learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
If you honor it, you're grateful for it, and gratitude takes you to really good places. You know,
Mm-hmm.
but it needs to be honored,
Mm-hmm.
and the future needs to be respected. Um, the reason is that you need to make sure that you understand that eventually you're going to be there. Yeah, and that future that you're respecting will be the present that you're living at some point. So, like we've always said, look to the left of time and look to the right of time. Look to the left to learn your lessons, look to the right to plan, but let your heart be still. It doesn't mean that you need to shut down everything there. Because in the future you have vision. And without vision, you've got nothing, man.
Mm-hmm.
You've got randomness. You you don't progress. Change is automatic, progress is not. Without a vision, there's no leadership. Without leadership, change collapses into chaos. And let's face it, do you like surprises? Or do you only like surprises that you appreciate? Yeah? That's it.
Of course, yeah,
So a certain level of spontaneity is important in life. You know, you need to have spunk and the juice for life, and that desire to live. But that
yeah.
desire to live,
Mm-hmm.
whilst present, still requires a vision of what happiness is. So when we talk about happiness, the universal formula is when the expectation of your life or your plan of life is in balance with your experience of
Mm-hmm.
life. But in order for you to be happy, then it means you need to have an expectation, which means you need to have a vision,
Mm-hmm.
which means you need to be able to look ahead of time as well as live in the present. Expectation,
Mm-hmm.
future, vision, experience, present.
Would you? Yeah, I'm not sure because the about expectation. The more you expect, the less
Well,
happy
this is a
you
key
are,
thing. If you're not happy, you either change your
right?
expectation or you change your experience. This is why it balances.
Yeah.
It's not so complicated, but
Same.
it's let's put it this way. It's simple, but it's not easy.
Yeah, like
Like life. Yeah.
life.
Uh, Kevin says, or in a Gucci bag. That seems to work as well. Now, I'd like you to explain that to us. Oh, no. Yeah. I'd like you to explain that to us a little bit more, Kevin. Um, oh,
Or a
yeah,
good way.
yeah. Put pride in the pocket. Got it. Or in a Gucci bag. Great. You got a point
Ah,
there.
okay.
Actually, I'm going to tell you something, Kevin. You have a point there because it is much nicer to. We all have problems, and it is much nicer to arrive at the problems in a Rolls Royce than it is to arrive in a beat up bicycle because that's all you can afford. Simple as that. But having said that, it's not about the money. At the end of the day,
Although it's
it
pretty
does
handy,
come in handy.
like yeah, but I'm dreaming of a world where we are taking care of us of each other and we just explode in intelligence because what if we put You know, what if we would give Africa food, water, shelter, and then education? And all these, you know, third world countries in general, suddenly all these kids are start to program, and our IT intelligence will just explode, you know, like, meaning there will be enough for everybody. Everybody will have enough money. I'm just dreaming out loud. Would that make people happier?
No.
Probably not. Because, you know, like, if my purpose now, and this is the word where I want to go to, so I kind of give it away already, damn. But if my purpose now is like, my kids are hungry and I have to work for that, and blah, 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 and if they have food, I am a good father, and that goal basically just vanishes, it might actually make me unhappy. So what is the key word here? To have some kind of purpose. And this is maybe what you call vision, purpose, is in the end, it's all about purpose. You know, you can have as much money, but without vision or purpose, it doesn't make you happier. You know, and you can lead a very like basic lifestyle with not a lot of money, but just enough, and have, you know, like a strong purpose and do what you love, and you're more happy than any billionaire
I'm
in the
gonna I'm
world.
gonna give you my definition of both things. This is personal definition, but it seems to work quite well.
Yeah.
Vision is one thing, and purpose
Hmm.
is another one. They're very related.
Okay.
Vision is what you live
Yes.
for. If it's a long-term vision, you know, like my vision is for the rest of my
Mm.
life. It's what do you live for, um, and purpose is how you live for that. You see?
So, okay, so say my vision is because say it is to grow. What would be then a person? How to grow? I grow through the teachings that I learn myself and I share with
The
others.
question is not
Yeah?
necessarily how, but why. You see,
Why? Why I want
yeah,
to grow? It's not why. It
you just want
just
to grow.
is.
So then your purpose is to grow,
It's
but
evolution.
your vision is what for.
All right.
You see, you can interchange these. So if you're asking yourself, what do I want to grow for? Then you're looking at a vision. But your purpose is growth. So you're growing constantly. So your purpose gives you your lifestyle, your
Mm.
everyday actions, what you're doing, you know? And your vision is what you're aiming for. So a purpose, like for example,
Mm.
my vision before was to have the privilege to touch the hearts and change the lives of all the people I have the honor to meet and to choose or desire to
Mm.
help. Um,
Mm.
with this change of vision, yeah, my vision now is to create change, to create real, true change through the power of questions by questioning yourself and leadership. Yeah.
And
Authority,
authority
definitely.
also, I sense.
Definitely.
Especially maybe. Yeah. Don't just trust
Yeah.
authorities.
And
Yeah.
this is an important thing. However, my purpose is to be able to change those lives. Through that vision and through my daily work in that vision, my purpose is to be able to change those lives. So
Mm.
what happens that every day I'm still going to get
Mm.
up, I'm still going to go out, and I'm still going to try to help somebody. Because even if am able to help this much, like I said, I am only one human being and I cannot do everything. But if when it comes to helping somebody else, I will not refuse to do that which I can do. You see?
Mm.
So, yeah, the reality is that as a human being, I want to be able to help. And yes, it's also true, it's
Yeah, and
difficult
that
to
is,
ask for help back.
yeah, yeah. What I'm sensing is when do you want to help others? Isn't that like another definition of being of having empathy? You know, because without empathy, you wouldn't give a
You
damn, right?
can't.
What do you
I think
think?
if you are helping others and you have no empathy for them, you're doing out of a fashion statement. Let me
Yeah.
put it a little clearer. You are doing it through, let's say, charity auctions, and you're bidding on the charity auction simply because other people are doing it, and out of either guilt, not empathy, guilt, you choose to bid on that charity auction as well, or out of
Yeah.
fashion
Or because they're watching you.
because they're watching you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's more of, I want to be, um, okay, wait, I'll get to Alex's comment in a second. But
Yes.
you see, contribution versus significance is a matter of focus. You can help others. You can help people around the world. You can, help other people around you just by doing simple acts of kindness, simple random acts of kindness. This is good. Or you can do it out of
Yes.
guilt. You can do it out of, you've been such an
Yes.
evil son of a gun, I was going to say a really bad word,
Yeah.
but you've been a real bad son of a gun, and you feel guilty about it, and therefore you want to give to charity, donate, create a church, build a school, educate people. But it's coming from the wrong place.
It's a great start, I think. But it's still a great start. But you want to grow to just wanting to
Just
help
wanting to help other
people,
people, which basically should really negate the doing the bad stuff.
exactly, and helping other people, but with respect to
Yep.
yourself. Because I meet a lot of teachers that are burning out because they're just in their, like if you just want to help other people, you're basically pleasing. That is not going to work. You can only help people who ask for help, first of all. Like ask whatever a coaching call or come to your training or whatever. But you cannot help everybody. That's an illusion for sure. And, like if you want to help other people because that's the only way to feel good about yourself, it's time to go back in your cave basically and do some rigorous self-research before you go out again.
Yep. You see, that reflection is so crucial, yet so underused. And we can all do it. We can all do it. And I say this, the quality of your thoughts will determine the quality of your life, but the quality of your thoughts will definitely determine the quality of your leadership. So, putting it like this.
It's funny
Go
that one sure thing that one of the things that it's like a prayer, you could say, like just one sentence. I want to live my best
Yeah.
thoughts. That's one that is one of my mantras. I want to live my best thoughts.
Do you know, there's
Go
studies
ahead.
that show that we have anywhere between 60 and 90,000 thoughts per day. Because of the evolutionary process, approximately 80% of those thoughts are negative because they're all about survival. They're all in the sympathetic system. Yeah?
Yes.
So,
I agree.
how do you control that? I mean, how do you really guide thoughts? Considering also that the repetitiveness of thoughts create, very simply, words. And those words turn into actions, and those actions turn into habits, and those habits turn into your character, and your character becomes your destiny, right? So if this is the case, how do you manage that 80% of negative thoughts that we have simply for survival, that reside in the sympathetic system? It's interesting, especially considering of the repetitiveness of it, that it is said that 93% of our thoughts today are a repeat of the thoughts that we had yesterday. And 93% of the thoughts we had yesterday are a repeat of the thoughts that we had the day before yesterday, as 93% of the thoughts we'll have tomorrow are the same thoughts we had today.
Yeah.
If 80% of them are negative, how do we then focus the mind towards a more brilliant way of thinking, a more quality-driven thought process? Do you know the answer to that?
Well, maybe because my first my first remark is don't worry about the negative thoughts. Because if you start to worry about negative thoughts, you only get more negative thoughts,
Yep.
right? But also, just, okay, say we have two people. One person hates their job and the other person loves their job. A 0 and a 1. Yeah, like 100% loves, 0% loves, 100% hates. I believe that the person who does what they love are at least 10 times more productive than the person that hates his or her job. Yeah, and from that, and this is like my mathematical deduction, and it's completely personal, of course, but it works for me. From that, I get to the following statement that positive thoughts are 10 times stronger, at least, than negative thoughts. So if you have one positive thought against 10 negative thoughts, you're already into neutral area. So don't worry about the negative thoughts. Like you're going to do your shopping and you get your plastic bag or whatever bag and you put it on your bicycle and then you think like, oh my God, if it drops, then, like my jar of marmalade will break, right? Stuff like that. Like it's, like, yes, negative thinking is praying for the bad to happen. That's one way of thinking. On the other hand, we have so many negative thoughts. They really don't become reality. So you don't have to worry about it. As long as you have one positive thought against 10 negative, you're in neutral. If you're 2 to 10, if you're 50-50, your life is going skyrocket into the stars, into heaven, I would say. So that's my first reaction to
Let's
what you
see.
just
Let's get an analogy here. So, of course, you live in Holland, and you've just been to Finland, and these places are places where in winter it gets pretty cold. And if it gets pretty
Yes.
cold, the roads get pretty icy. So what
Mm,
happens with an icy road, if you don't have full control and dominance over your car, is that you can skid, right? You skid and you can drift.
mm.
Where do you look when you drift?
I would say you always look when driving a car, you look in the
But to what
distance,
direction?
right? You
No, you
don't
don't
look
look down
just
because when you look down, the car shakes. No. So,
I think the right way would be if my car is drifting like that, I would look to the right and still look for you still look
so
forward,
you
probably.
need to
Don't you
look where
think so?
you want to go
Yes,
because
exactly. Yes.
automatically you adjust everything to make the car, which at that point is an extension of your consciousness, yeah, go towards where you want it to go.
My That's so funny, like, yes, I do own a Porsche, and that's just an extension of my consciousness. Your car, that's a perfect quote. Your car is an extension of your consciousness. Peter Jansen. Love it.
But only when you're skidding
Yes.
with
No,
traction
but
control. No.
yeah.
But if you look at where you're actually going, you're going to crash. Yeah, you just
Yes,
and you just keep on
definitely. Yeah.
spinning out, and you
Yeah.
will crash. So
Okay.
this is an
Yes, I
important,
like
a
it.
very important point, because of course, if you're looking at the uncontrollable spin of life, wow, you're gonna crash and burn, you know, and it's as simple as
Yes.
that. But
Yeah.
if you're actually focused on where you want to go, that's a separate issue. Now, here's the deal. So
Yes.
I'll share something that some people already know about me, including yourself. But I had a really big accident in a gym in 2005, and the cable crossover machine in the gym fell on my head, cracked my skull open, busted my L2. Doctor said that it was just going to be really difficult for me to ever walk again and impossible for me to read and write again. So of course, since then, I've climbed Kili, I've done Mont Blanc, I've done
Mm.
actual, yeah, free climbed a few first ascents and stuff like this, and I've written a couple of books. So there you go. But the day that it happened, right, the machine fell on my head, I held it. And that moment, I knew something. I knew that I had to survive. So my first question, the first thing that popped into my head was a question. And the question was, how am I going to survive this? Now you're going to like this because you're pretty much a mathematician, right? So how am I going to survive this? And the answer popped into my mind immediately. You need to stay awake. And another question, how do I stay awake? Answer popped in immediately. You keep your mind active. How do I keep my mind active? Do something mathematical.
Mathematics saved your life, you're saying.
Question saved my life. So basically what I started to do is I started imagining the Pascal triangle. 1, 1, 1, 1, 3, 1, no, 1, 2, 1, 1, 3, 3, 1. Yeah. I started imagining that. And I started making calculations on that, like multiplying it. And then I thought, okay, the Fibonacci sequence, let's get the Fibonacci sequence. And then because it's based on the Fibonacci sequence, let's do this. And I started playing around with it just to keep myself awake. Yeah. But then a really big question came into my mind randomly. And I said, how can I use this to better my life and that of others? Man.
And this is where the magic
And then,
happened.
boom. And why does it work? Here it is. Have you ever heard a song or have a song pop into your mind and then you think, oh, what's the name of that song? And you can't think of it and you're like, and then you can't focus on anything because that stupid song is in your head and all your mind is doing is try to identify what the name of that song is. Or you see a person and you're like, hey, lovely to see you. Oh, man, it's so nice to see you again. And you completely forget their name. Yeah. And then the name is like, and it starts bothering you. And you can't think of anything. And you can't even pay attention to the conversation simply because you're trying to think of the person's name. And you feel a little bit embarrassed. And then you're thinking, how am I going to ask their name? Now it's just awkward. Now I'm going to have to, sorry, I've got to go. And then you discover 2 days later, a day later, oh, that was the name of that song. Oh, that's the name of that person. This is what happens. You asked yourself, what's the name of that song? What's the name of that person? And your mind started focusing on it. When you were able to let it go, it did its magic in the background. And then eventually the answer came up. 2 things. Number 1, that question occupied mental real estate, mental processing abilities that you could have used for something better. Yeah. Number 2, you did not focus on that specific interaction in that specific moment in time with whatever it was. And this is very important. Now, when you ask yourself questions, you need to be very careful with language. Now, for this, I need to talk to you about a gentleman by the name of Ludwig Wittgenstein. So this was an Austrian-American philosopher. He was a soldier in World War I, and he was running from trench to trench, trying to get away from enemy fire. And all of a sudden, he stopped in the middle of the field, sat down on the floor, bullets passing by, people running past, mortars exploding around him. And he sat down and he took out his notebook and a pencil. And he wrote the beginning of what we now know as Tractus Philosophicus, in which he states that human experience is limited only by our linguistic capabilities. Language is magic. And here it is. When you ask yourself a question, you need to direct it. And you need to direct it in solvable terms. If something bad happens and you go, oh, why did this happen to me? You asked the question, my friend. Now your mind is going to be answering it. and you did not give it a positive direction. So it's going to start justifying. And in the back of your mind, all of a sudden, boom, 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 the machinery starts working and you get an answer. And guess what the answer is going to be? Because
I'm
you're
not
not
good
good
enough.
enough. Because
What?
you suck. Because, all
Something
these
like
things.
that.
Exactly.
Whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah, this one.
So what we need to do
Yeah.
is refocus our language, refocus our questions. And it's quite simple, really. How can I use this? What have I learned from this? How can I
Yes.
improve on it?
Yes, exactly.
And if you let
Yeah.
it go, the machinery will work its magic. And eventually you'll go, Eureka, I got it.
Because we all know this, somebody that is deaf has a better eyesight. Somebody that is blind can hear better. So there's always something, positive out of something negative. Actually, the whole positive and negative doesn't really exist. It's just the meaning you give to it is the meaning that it has. Right? So, but back to leadership.
Back to leadership.
So, I think that not I don't think I strongly feel that the world is changing. And since we have been screwing up, say the world in general, make it dirty and things like that. It is time for that change also. And the question is where is that change going to be when we talk about leadership? And I feel, in to say it in your words, that we should grow from out of self-interest. No, not completely out of self-interest, but out of the complete self-interest and private agenda into one of balance, where you, of course, do care about yourself, but you care as much about the group you're acting in, which can be your family, which can be you and your friend. Like when we're talking, out of my self-interest, I would only be talking and I wouldn't give a damn about listening. There wouldn't be a conversation, right? So in that balance of taking care of the group, making decisions that are good for the group, which is you listening now to me is good for the group, basically. And when you look at leadership, it means that we need leaders that, apart from their own paycheck, they really care about the group or about their clients or about the world or about the legacy they leave behind. And how do you care about the group? This is by learning to be empathic.
Yeah.
It's by being empathic. So, and the funny thing is, I don't know if you got any lessons in empathy at school, but it's not really learned at school. We all learn it in life. We learn it in life. We have a few rock bottoms, burnout, whatever, losing your money, having a whole gym machine fall on your back, whatever. We all have our rock bottoms. And the thing is, we don't learn it at school. We need to learn it through life, and I would love to help influence the world, that people would learn it a bit earlier and maybe even at school, so for me, the core about new leadership is to learn how to be empathic.
Now, you've got an incredible point there. So my specialty is in coaching is leadership through emotional intelligence.
Exactly. Yeah,
so
I know that. Yeah.
Emotional intelligence is very simply put empathy. Yeah. So
yes.
Here's an interesting thing. 80%, I kid you not, 80% of our decisions are made emotionally. Yet in schools, in the systems that we live in the society that we live in, we are being prepared academically to tackle life's decisions rationally and logically. Okay, so wait, hold on. That represents 20% of why we actually make decisions. We need to change the system. We need to change the system. We need to question our leaders. We need to question ourselves, and we need to understand how we can actually start using that 80% that we are so not using and so misusing in many times. And empathy is the biggest thing there, because it requires self-knowledge, self-exploration. You cannot understand others if you don't understand yourself.
Exactly. So we need to basically start with ourselves. You know, it's a total cliche, but it's so true. And then how do you? Because here's where I come in with my body intelligence. You know, like we have like that rational mind, according to Einstein, and the intuitive mind, and and I feel that body intelligence is that intuitive mind. You know, if you say something, I really feel, you know, like my heart opening up. I'm like, oh man, yeah, I love this guy, or at least I love what he says at this moment. I'm listening, you know, I'm in. And listening to your body is basically following your intuition, you could say. And you know, like how do you learn to listen to your body? Is for me, it's 5 pillars, you could say. Everyday exercise, but very lightly. So, you know, like don't make too much of a plan. Breathing techniques. With, you know, the side effect of breathing techniques is that you clean up your body, you alkalize it, put it full of oxygen, whatever, you release dopamine. It's all cool, but it's all side effects. I'm not sure. I hear something in my.
Yeah.
Can you still hear me? Okay. Yeah, so light exercise, breathing techniques, then a certain way of thinking, which I call the power of paradox, which is simply said, um, um, if you think you know something, you haven't understand it. You haven't understood it. Yeah, the more you think you know, the less you know. And if you are aware that you know little, if not maybe nothing, you become truly intelligent.
That's
And you
Socrates
stay humble,
right there, my friend.
by the way. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the guy. I got it from my daughter, but other story. She said, Daddy, you really don't understand anything, do you? And I was like,
Yeah,
uh-huh,
you're right. Yeah.
that's right. That's why I'm so intelligent, honey. Okay, so number three is clearing up your mind. A certain mindset. For me, it's called the power of paradox, and you probably have given it another name, but I know we think alike. The fourth one is nutrition. You know, like what you put in your body is what you get out. You know, like simply said. Same as a computer. The data, the cleaner the data is you put in, the cleaner the algorithm is that you get out, the AI, you know, like I'm sorry, this is just my
Oh,
nerdy
yeah,
side
don't
that
worry
just
about it. I'm
pops up.
sure Alex is going to have something to say about that.
So number four is nutrition, and number five is it's called training. It's just a shortcut. It's just a very simple way of becoming more body aware, cleaning up your body. And the more clean you are, and there is space, you know, like to have your wine, or you know, to have a hamburger, or whatever your I call it your detox, whatever your detox is, you should do that too. You know, a good night out drinking with your friends it's maybe not so good for your body, but it's good for your mind, because it's like, you know, you get stupid for a night, you know, which is very, very good. So that will be, you know, like these are my 5 pillars of how to clean up my body, but not per se focusing on health, because I am quite healthy, so I don't have a problem there at this moment. But it's more about gaining more body intelligence. Like the more empty you become from the inside, the better you can feel, and the better you can make decisions based on your body intelligence, on your intuition, that have a very long-term positive effect. And mental decisions are short-term positive. Like I have to go now, so I can be at 11 at my appointment. It's a mental decision, gives me a short-term satisfaction, you could say. You know, and that long term is decided by intuition, if or body intelligence. This is just the way I think that life will be perfect, and it's built in, you know, up that long path is built in the little steps, the little increments that are basically created by the mind. You know, like today I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do that, and then I have a little hour for myself, and then I'm going to take my kid to the movie, whatever, you know. But as long as your mind, as Einstein said, is helping you going to direction that body intelligence, intuition, I think you will have a very, very happy life. This is what I'm, you know, like the way I do it for myself, and also how I help other people, of course. But let's say it works for
That's an
me.
important thing.
It's not the undivided truth.
So
It
try it
works for
out.
me. So that would
Yeah.
be, yeah. And you know, like as a side effect, you become more empathetic because you start, first of all, you get more patient. And I'm very impatient from, you know, that's my natural state is very impatient. But you get to be more patient and also feel others better. So um, by taking care of yourself, of your body, of your mind, you become more empty. You start to feel your own body better, but you also feel others better. Like I feel that it's time for me to stop talking now, and that you should
No, it's really
let
good.
in.
It's really good. I wrote it. I wrote it all down. It's right here. Because
Yeah, cool. Thanks.
it's very valuable stuff. I mean, you know, I remember when I was when I was much younger, the light exercise thing never entered my life. It was all or nothing. You know, it was like work out as hard as you can, rip the
Uh,
muscles, and I mean by rip the muscles, I actually mean tendons and
and
ligaments.
then
You know,
yeah,
um,
and then you
yeah,
crash,
you
right?
end up crashing. One thing here, there's two things that I'd like to touch in, because these things I'm quite
Mm.
good at. I mean, obviously you're like one of the world experts in light exercise, breathing techniques, and cold training. Um, for me, it's the quality of thought. That's what I'm more of an expert in. But also when you
Mm.
talk about nutrition, you know what? I've discovered a while back that nutrition doesn't only mean the food and the supplements and the that you put into your body. It also means the information. You know,
Mm-hmm. So what
what
do
I
you mean
mean
with that?
is
Yeah.
be careful what you put into your body, including what you listen to, what you read, what you watch. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
because and as I remember, actually, I remember sitting down with Alex one day. This is a long time ago. We started work on a project together for the. We
Mm.
wanted to work on a project. We went to a meeting with the Olympic Committee, um, and it was actually quite interesting. Here he says, the cleaner the data you put in, the more hours of sleep per night Alex gets. So that's funny. That's
Alex, I
that's
like
really
you,
really funny.
man. You should do one.
So that
Yeah.
day we took the bus, and correct me if I'm wrong, Alex, but I think we took the bus that day, and we started talking, about the fact of that there's so much information everywhere, and we said, yeah, actually, there is no lack of information. We pretty much have all the information we need out there. What there's a lack of is
Hmm.
filters. You know,
Yeah.
so I truly believe that the next power shift is going to be towards filters. But the next leadership, and this is an important one, the next leadership is going to be towards questioning self, authority, and leadership. And I believe
Mm.
that this is
Mm.
important. These things are very important. And in order for us to question all these things, and in order for us to grow, we need to first have great quality thoughts. And we don't have time for that. We don't allow it because the more we are connected in this world, the more we disconnect from this world and from ourselves. And it's an
Mm.
interesting concept.
Well, there are some natural forces going on. Like I agree that the amount of information we get bombarded to us is maybe too much, but then like I also believe that we not cannot possibly grasp like the idea of what is actually really happening. And one little example is like my kids. I have 4 kids. They don't watch television. Whenever there's something that it's like it doesn't work anymore already for 2 years. But before that, we were watching like The Voice or something, and then there were the advertisements, and everybody just turns away, and nobody's interested anymore. And they say like, you know what, we watch it in an hour on YouTube because we don't want those advertisements anymore. So there's also this natural filter where they turn away from the television. And that made me thought of the following, which is like, if we get bombarded by information, what is the way to survive? It's only one way: training your intuition. Is this information for me? Doesn't feel right. No, 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 no. This is for me. And this is exactly what is happening now, because we are bombarded with information, but we can get everything on
Yeah, we
demand
can.
also. You know, so you can really, if you can listen to your heart or to your intuition, you can learn everything without any cost. You know, and you just need to learn to say no to the stuff that doesn't serve you. This is a very important thing.
Have you ever watched The Yes Man with Jim Carrey? Yes.
Yes,
Love it
yes,
too,
love it.
but it's dangerous.
Yeah,
We do need to understand the
exactly.
power
Yeah.
of yes, but mostly a lot of clients will come up to me because they're not able to say no to stuff. You need to be
Yeah,
selective in life
exactly.
because you only have a certain amount of hours like everybody else does in this world. You need to know how to
Exactly.
prioritize and you need to know how to delegate. And the reality is that no is a very powerful word that is very underused. But it's very underused because we try to please people. As leaders
Exactly.
of thought, we're not here to please. We're here to empower. Yeah, and this is a
Exactly.
very important point. You know, if you want to be pleased, go to Cirque du Soleil. Yeah,
Yeah. And the same goes for teachers, you know, that maybe that are leaders too. But if you have a teacher that is pleasing you, that, you know, you're wasting your time and your money. You want a teacher that gives you what you need and not
yeah.
pleases you, you know? So that's exactly
And
the
it's a
same.
very
So
important thing. It's a very important thing because we need to actually become much more selective with what was going on in here. You know?
yeah, to say no, to say, so we have a few pinpoints here, you know, like training your intuition, and you know, like, so how do I do that is by, you know, by having a certain way of clear thinking, or but also by breathing techniques. If you slow down your breathing, you go into your parasympathetic, and the space in between the thought gets bigger, and you don't get to, you know, like, you say something and I immediately reflect back, you know, without thinking. You know, that didn't you say that last time, that you have a first way of thinking and then a second level of thinking, something
Oh,
like that?
yes. So, yeah, the the space between when you get stimulated and when you react, that space, that space right there is greatness. So if you're able to extend that space and not react
Mm-hmm.
immediately, then that right there is wisdom. It's growth.
Mm-hmm.
That there shows strength of character. It shows a lot and it determines your destiny. So the longer that space is without getting too far. It's not good to all of a sudden have a situation and then
Yeah.
you react a year later. No, you got a space.
Mm-hmm.
You need to find your own sweet spot. But the reality is that when you get stimulated by anything, positive or negative, stop,
Mm-hmm.
breathe. And here's the key thing: breathe out slowly. Yeah,
Yes.
and then
Extend your
extend your exhale,
exhale. Yes.
and then you can properly think your next move. It doesn't mean you have to be strategic all the time. It just means that you need to be more deliberate.
No, and it's actually the other way around. If you slow down your breathing, you're not, because being strategic is
Yeah.
private agenda, self-interest, or this is the way I translate it. Well, if you slow down your breathing, you're not thinking anymore, but you're feeling, and this is where your intuition can come to the surface. So you're not being strategic, you're being
That's it.
authentic.
You're being authentic and authenticity shines through, and people like that, you
Mm,
know? Which is
yeah, I
sometimes
like
why we
that.
don't really
Yeah,
give a shit to say things like give a shit. You
exactly.
know? It's as simple as that.
Oh, that's funny. That's another thing I will post in as a comment. There's this drawing of Tim Urban. I don't know if you know Tim
No.
Urban. He is a famous blogger of Wait But Why, and he made this cartoon where you see like four kids, and you see one kid fly away in a balloon, and one the four kids there. It says under it, most people just want to be liked, and then it says except for Tim. Tim doesn't give a shit, and you see Tim put his middle finger up to that group of people, and well, it kind of, you know, Tim dares to say no because Tim doesn't give a shit in this
Yeah.
image, right?
Yeah. Well, the thing is this: we're
Yeah.
not in this world to please people. We're in this world to empower people. I'm going to tell you one thing. I'm as a coach. I'm not a very good therapist. Yeah. This is true. So in coaching, you have people who are really
Yeah.
good therapists and people who are really good equippers. I'm very good equipping people, but I'm not very good at being a therapist. I'm a very good therapist when it comes to friendship, but when it comes to coaching, I'm a very good equipper. I can equip people with the necessary tools and the necessary thinking that they require and reflection that they require
Yeah.
to be able to tackle life. But, however hard I try to be empathetic, I am a very empathetic person, but however hard I try, the therapist part doesn't shine because I'm like, no, okay, wait. Yeah, I get it. I get what you're going through right now. Let me give you the number of a shrink. You can go see the psychologist for that. But for now, let me give you some stuff that you
Yeah.
can use so you can move beyond that, And
Yes. Yeah.
and the reality is that as equippers, you tend to care less what people think of you and care more about
Yeah, I like that.
care less about the likability and care more about the delivery and the result. You see what I mean? Yeah.
The outcome.
Yeah,
I get it.
that's important. If a person is more focused on being a therapist, then it's like, okay, well, we need to care less about the outcome and more about the process. But empathy, back to the leadership, empathy is a key factor in leadership today. It is, and it's a key differential as well.
And
You need to care, but you need to care by understanding, and you need to understand by observing and listening and feeling and being open, not by saying things like,
yeah.
hey man, if I want your opinion, I'll give it to you. No, that leadership doesn't work anymore. It doesn't.
No.
Especially when we are thriving
Empathy.
in times of change. You see, I don't know if you noticed this, but if you go back to the 50s, Fortune 500 companies in the 50s, there are quite a few companies that are still going on today, but not as many. Like the companies that were in Fortune in the Fortune 500 in 1955, I believe, that are still in there today, it's like 12%. The others have either gone bankrupt or merged or just disappeared or whatever. But the companies today, a lot of the companies that are in the Fortune 500 are companies that thrive on change, where change is something that occurs constantly, all the time. Today I was actually on the phone with the managing editor of change management. I forgot. Anyways, I'm sorry, Brian, if you're listening.
Somebody important. We're Brian. We're talking with Brian.
Yes, I was talking with Brian, and we're talking about doing a podcast together. But we were talking about change and change management and how things are actually changing today. And the reality is that if there is no leadership, change goes all over the place. But if there's no change, there's no need for leadership. However, stimulation of the senses is so high right now that people are living so quickly and at the same time so unconsciously that the emotional charge in people is threshold is way up there, and a lot of people are highly emotional but highly repressed. And I think this can be actually quite dangerous, but it requires leaders who can be quite empathetic and who can manage change in a very efficient way through inspired vision.
Yeah, totally. And at the same time, people need to take responsibility into their own hands as well. You cannot just depend on your leader, manager, your dad, because if your point, which I totally agree with, it's question authority. If we question authority, we need to take a responsibility for
Yes.
ourselves. I think my